Hey everybody. Hope all is well. Hope y'all are doing good. Tonight is a special well, we're not doing no tutorial today. Most people think I am, but no. I'm actually going to be starting a podcast series. And I have a very important I have an important guest with me, Mr. Ben Allen. Da da
What's
da
up,
da da
people?
da 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 da. Boom. Okay. Um, he's a very good friend of mine. I feel like he's my um ten to 20-year-old cousin. He just look like some just yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So Mr. Ben, could you introduce yourself to YouTube, to the whole world?
Sure. Um, my name is Ben Allen. I have a YouTube channel that I attend to when I have time. My full-time job is tech director at a small church in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's not that small, actually. We have four campuses. Keeps me pretty busy. One of the things that the church sent me to do was go to NAM and check out some new equipment for different facilities that we are either going to build or already have. And in the process, of course, I had to play all the keyboards, and I got to meet my brother Delroy and snuck on over to the Viscount booth, and the rest is history.
That part. Yeah, it was really something else. And as y'all heard what he said his church. So let me tell you, so that's a blessing right there. One day, you can be sponsored. It's a very good blessing indeed. Um, and for those who don't know what NAM is, and most people know, it's the National American Music Merchants. And it's not only for dealers; it's also for like producers, students, music enthusiasts, endorsed artists, people from backline productions, and stuff. So people of the music background, musicians, singers, all that. They come to the show where they see the latest invention of products and um, you know, of different companies, and so forth. So that's where I get to meet Mr. Ben Allen. I met him through a good friend of mine. Shout out to Mr. Chris Saunders from Core. Chris.
Crispy Chris
Yes.
Sanders.
That part. Crispy Chris Sanders. I love that. But you know, I brought him on here because, with this podcast, I will be interviewing different, persons on here as regards to the Viscount, the Viscount products. How do they feel? What's their experience about it, and the pros, the cons, and so forth, as well, and how do they think it will be matching up, in the industry, the competition right now, and so forth. So actually, I get to I sold Ben a Legend One 73, and it was good. I got mine and eventually sold it. So I'm waiting on my order shipment to come in because I don't have a display model anymore. Unfortunately, my client took it from me. But yeah. So but Mr. Ben, he purchased one from me, and he's loving it. I will say he does have a channel, Ben Allen. You can give him a shout out, subscribe as well, support him. He does really good stuff. And one thing I will say I like with Ben, in his tutorial, he's very detailed. And I have to give him. He's one of the guys out there that I really follow because, Ben, like you don't rush your tutorials.
Go ahead, say it like this. Your videos are too long.
No, I don't think they are too long. I just think
Some
they
people
are
do.
informative.
Yeah.
Now, for some people, they think it's too long, but I'm gonna be honest. In the music for fraternity with the new products, majority of these posts or quote unquote tutorials
Yeah.
are just really just a brush off. It's just off the surface. And I think, you have people out there that They may be tech savvy. They may not be tech savvy. They're they're musical. But with these guys out there, and this is not a bash or a smash or anything, but people don't know the potential of these equipments and what they can do. Just like, for example, I have to say, everybody knows me. I do the Viscount tweaks and da 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 da. I sell Viscount organs, whatever not. And I'll use this as an example. I'm sorry. On the Legend One, when I got the board, I didn't get the manual for it. So we grown men, we don't read manuals, I guess. But that's for babies.
No,
But
I read all the manual.
but but Ben, there's a thing regarding the rise and fall time, and when I had mines, I just didn't remember how to do it. I didn't know how, because I was looking for it, and I didn't find it. And that video that you posted, I was like, oh my god, if I had just waited a little bit longer. But I'm getting mine, as I said, I'm getting another Legend One 61 and also a 73. What I was saying, that your tutorial, you really went in and dissect bone for bone, marrow for marrow, flesh for flesh, everything. And and I'm grateful for that, because you didn't have to do it really. You could have just been doing your own business. You didn't have to share your knowledge too, which I'm grateful for that, and I know all the people out there are grateful. So, yeah. So he's one of the guys. He in on his YouTube page. He does a lot of tutorials with a lot of companies, company brands like the Nord, the Korg, Viscount stuff, the keyboards, the in-depth stuff, the effects, what they're capable of, what they're not capable of, what they need to step up on, what they're already good thus far, and stuff like that. I think we need people like that. Just like, I mean, I thought sometimes I wouldn't say necessarily the only one, but it's good now that you have people like Ben out there, because it also educates you and also shifts you on how to purchase. What are you purchasing? And what are you really looking for? Am I going to buy this keyboard? Will this keyboard suit my needs? Not to be just buy, okay, I'm just gonna buy a keyboard because I would just buy a keyboard or any equipment. Okay. So, anyways, I'm gonna move it over to Mr. Ben. He's gonna be doing some talking tonight. I do have a question. What do you think so far of Viscount? First of all, what was your experience with Viscount? Not just the product necessarily, but Viscount. And I say Viscount, we got the people, the experience, all that.
That's a good question, and that's something that gets ignored a lot of times when you're trying to choose an instrument. You've got a
Right.
particular need at your house of worship or your band or whatever your situation is, your studio. You don't really think about the company behind it. And when I worked at Sweetwater, that was the thing that to me was the most important, was the company behind the instruments. And there are certain ones that I just won't buy anymore because I've had such bad experiences with the company, not necessarily the instrument itself. So to speak to Viscount, this was really an interesting experience. Going to NAM to begin with is a crazy
Right.
overload of your senses, right? And one of the things that stuck out to me right away on the floor is how rude most of the people are at NAM.
Wow.
It just seriously, like YouTubers, reviewers, people who do demos, just some of the rudest encounters that I've ever had in my life in terms of the equipment itself and just talking to them. They were really rushed. And I mean, I get it. You're there and you only have a certain amount of time to check out stuff, but it just be nice. Be nice to each other. Be nice in general, right? It goes further. But as far as Viscount, going to the booth, like like Delroy said, our friend Chris from Korg/Audient, he was kind of introducing us, and he knew that I was interested in the Legend One because I had talked to him about it. I said, "Listen to these demos. This is great. Like some of the stuff from Italy. I'm gonna mispronounce the guy's name if I say it, so I won't try. But the guy who did like the funky stuff and like where it's all those videos that got chopped up.
Right.
Anyway, the initial demos. I said, listen to this stuff. This is obviously the best sounding organ And I
Wow.
thought, oh, they probably recorded a Leslie, and that's what I'm hearing. And it wasn't. It was the actual sim. So I go to the booth and check out Viscount. And one of the things that was interesting right away is the people at the booth. I already had a little bit of a connection with Brian Ho, who's a
Right.
fantastic jazz and
Yes, sir.
other genres, just a monster on the organ. But he was really great in the chats talking about the keyboard to begin with. He kind of reached out to me, and we talked, and we still do. Great guy. And
Yes.
then I got connected with Delroy. We kind of chased each other around the floor trying to figure out where we
Right.
were for a while. But NAM is huge. I mean, picture like
That's
four
right.
football fields all stacked on top of each other, right? Just
Wow.
crazy. But got to meet Delroy. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this guy from South Carolina, this is interesting. He's nice. But then I go to the booth and I'm checking out all the other artists and the people who are doing their thing. And this great guy who's shredding on the organ and kind of doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, Jay, introduces himself to me.
Yeah.
Jay Valley gave me a card. I still have it. Just genuinely warm, nice, sincere people. And I won't name other
Right.
companies, but real close in that same proximity, there's a whole bunch of other keyboard companies. I'm trying not to name them, that
Right.
just were really rude to customers and potential people coming by. They were much more interested in doing their demos and like keeping a schedule than they were in
Right.
talking to the customer, potential buyer, and so forth. And just not that way at all at Viscount. In fact, it was, I have to confess a little bit. I sort of did a deal with Brian ahead of time, and I was trying to
Right.
pick up one of these things before it hit the general market, and did not realize that actually all these awesome Viscount guys are individual salesmen. I just kind of thought, oh, it's a big company. Here's all the people who are, behind it.
Right.
So that's totally on me, and I'm sorry for the way that went. But I think we've kind of cleared the air at this point. But Delroy is the one who ended up selling me the 73, and
Right.
Jay also told me about it. But the thing they let me do was just spend as much time as possible with the instruments. And even in the middle of the demos, where somebody would be shredding, maybe doing a gospel presentation or pop stuff or whatever, like they're like, yeah, keep your headphones on, check it out. Like going out of their way to make sure that I had the best experience possible. And I don't know these guys from Adam. So it was a really warm, inviting, just kind experience. And then it's been that way all throughout. I mean, talking on forums like the Music Player Network, for example, Facebook, other places. I think his name is Francesco. Last name starts with a V. I can't quite pronounce that
Francesco
either.
Verni, the
Okay.
boss. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh huh.
he's been great to talk to. I've had a few technical issues that the company responded almost within hours of posting to the forum and to their help form on the website. That's unheard of. I mean, Nord, let me just call them out for a second, took
Oh.
3 weeks to get back to me. The last time I sent them a, hey, I need some help
Wow.
with this thing. So just the company just acts much more like a small mom and pop kind of culture. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that they're a tiny company. I have no idea how big Viscount
Right.
is, but the attention to detail and personal touch has been beyond anything that I've ever seen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest, the closest thing I can compare it to is what we tried to emulate at Sweetwater when I was working there in sales. So just
Right.
great company, and I've got nothing but good things to say about the interactions I've had.
Right.
And I'm not being paid for any of this, by the way. I
Right.
wasn't given the instrument. It's not sponsored. None of that is the case. No. I bought it with my own money. All that was
Right.
100% above board. But seriously, this is a great company, and I've enjoyed interacting with all of them, including our brother Delroy here.
Yes, sir. And it's good. What you're hearing, guys. This is being just real, the raw, gut truth. And I think we all need honesty. This is one of the reasons why I like Viscount. And I will say this: Viscount has come a long way. Before I became a dealer, I was a customer. When I used to live in Alaska, when most people know, people knew me then. That's when I started off with all my tutorials and stuff on Facebook and YouTube. And they have come really far. They've had their ups and their downs just like any other company. But right now, I have to say, with the company, they have been coming stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. And I will say this in the words of my good friend Sebastian, y'all better keep an eye out for Viscount because I am telling you, their organs, they're working on their organs. They're working more on refining their organs. They're working um, to get their products in general right, and they have this thus this far one of, if not the best, to in my ears the closest organs right now on in the music industry. The features that they have provided, and can we not forsake the price that they're selling it for? The price,
Yeah,
the
it's
Legend
crazy.
One,
It's crazy. I keep expecting it to break. Because
right?
like
Yeah,
this is these are Behringer prices for what I'm getting here is crazy,
yeah.
Don't buy
Uh,
them, by the way. Behringer
oh
stuff. Don't
Lord.
don't buy don't buy their stuff, Sorry.
Uh-oh.
Just saying.
But I mean, you have to be honest. And because honesty, it puts everyone on the lookout. And as Ben even said it too, the internal sim on the Legend One has changed. And see this, and I'm gonna say this here, and this is no hate. This is no hate to no one. With their product from another. I'm not here to to bash or to slander, but my thing is, what I like with the Viscount, they're different. Um, um, they're different in shaping the organ in their own way. As regards to organ modeling, um, the sound, the features of how a Hammond does. And I'm gonna say this, again, in the words of Sebastian, each Hammond, if you put 5 Hammond organs in one room, it's gonna sound. They do not sound alike. But this is where I like with Viscount. We have made one update thus far on the going with the Legend One, which is a new product, um, and that changed a lot of people's perspective as regards to what instrument should I purchase, as regards to the organ. Nord, for example, they came up with their organs. Great job, Nord, but for me, and I'm not saying this because I'm a Viscount guy. I'm saying this as a Hammond, vintage Hammond organist. When I sit around it, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be done. I just wasn't that impressed. But when I came back to the booth this year, I'm sorry, I was shocked. The B367 model that they have put out there. I have a friend that does organs for Church of God in Christ. Shout out to you, Willie Hudson Jr. He has a 67B3. I called Willie immediately and I said, Willie, I could have swore they went to your backyard and took your B3 and have you sleeping at night and cloned it and returned it back to your house because it sounded so amazing. I'm using these as examples of why I like Viscount and their customer service, and they've come a long way, which they have improved a lot. You do have a lot of, and it's more. And you said something, Ben, which I really agree with. There, you can feel a family, a mama and a papa
Hmm.
embrace, versus some companies and other companies you just feel like, oh my god, um, and right now to how it is right now with the price of this, the organs and so forth. I mean, the Legend One that's under $2,000. You can't beat that. Um, the chorus vibrato has improved, and I'm gonna tell y'all something. I'm gonna say something. When I was playing the Legend One, they have additional sounds, which we all know. They have the piano sections and all that. But I ain't gonna lie now. I'm a, I get it. Some people say, well, it's not a Nord. I get it. I know Nord, is great for what they do of their piano samples, and that's known for a fact. We all know. But I am not gonna lie, their pianos on the Viscount is really starting to step up, and they do have some interesting sounds, like the bell stuff that you can layer. And I know that's on the Nord, and I'm just like, if you're going to purchase something, see, this is my thing right here. If I can get the same sound, if not better, at a cheaper price, you know. But I don't want to sound like the Baptist preacher, but okay. I don't want to sound political. Um, you know, um, what was what apart from the people,
Mm,
and apart from the sound of the organ, and I know those are those were things that pulled you of
yeah.
making your decision. But apart from that, what else um, grabbed you, that make that ultimate decision, as regards to those two? If you have any other,
Yeah, that's a good question because obviously people say the sound is the thing that drew me in or
right.
whatever. But one thing that's important to me that I've talked about before
Mm-hmm.
pretty extensively is build quality.
Mm.
You can't you can't sell me something that's built badly, no matter how
Right.
good it sounds.
Right.
There's a lot of really great sounding equipment that is just going to fall apart in a couple of years, and I won't touch
Mm-hmm.
it because why would you waste your time? Why would you waste your money? That's that B company again. We don't want to talk about that. It's obvious when you walk up to the Legend, and I'll say this, having no ties at all to Viscount, stepping up to the Legend 1 after playing the Nord Organ 3, which I had a pre-order for in, by the way.
Be careful. Be careful now. I'm
I
just
had a
playing.
I had a pre-order for the Nord Organ 3 when I went to NAMM, and I canceled it as soon as I got home because sorry, it just didn't, as you said, it didn't cut it. And somebody could give me a Nord Organ 3 and say, we're going to give you this, talk nicely about it on your channel or whatever, and I would still tell you the truth. It isn't as great as I expected it to be. And I went into the Viscount booth fully expecting to be disappointed because that's usually the experience
Wow.
we have, right? With, oh, this new thing that I see on the internet, it looks great, it sounds great, but when you really, spend some time in the music store or whatever with it, it's always a disappointment. That's just usually the case. So I usually will just set myself up for failure, knowing ahead of time, okay, it's probably all right, but it's not going to be that great. What what really threw me for a loop with the Nord Organ 3 and the Viscount Legend is Legend 1 is the Nord Organ 3 left me thoroughly disappointed
Mm.
because of I'll say it like this, and I've said it a few times before, both to you and other people. It sounds really good, the Nord Organ 3, to be clear. It
Right.
sounds really good. It cuts through the mix. It's punchy. It's bright.
Right.
They did some good stuff, subtle stuff, I will say, to the sound itself, to
Mm-hmm.
the tone wheel sound. They've added some cool synth stuff. They've tweaked their Leslie effect a little bit, rotary effect a little
Right.
bit. But basically, it's a slightly better C2D
Right.
for $4,000.
A copy of a copy, right?
Yeah, and I thought, all right, it's been over 7 years since the first one came out, the C2D. It's been well over 7 years. And wow, this is just, it's just okay. It's not even like, I could live with this. I could live with that. I was like, there's no way I'm spending $4,000 on this. So then I went to the Hammond booth and played the XK5, which I've owned before. And
Oh, you did.
Yeah, I didn't tell you this. Jim Alfredson can make
Shout out
anything
to Jim.
sing. Jim can make
Yes.
anything sing. He can make
Shout out to Jim.
Casios from Walmart sound amazing. It's just true. He's amazing. So he's doing his thing and playing the pedals and whatever. But when he walked away, I was like, all right, I'm gonna try this again because I had an XK5 for a while, and I thought feels good. I mean, it looks the part. The double manual, the Heritage series. It looks great. Sounds good through these new Leslies, but turn off all the stuff and just listen to the basic tone, and
Mm.
it doesn't it it doesn't really sound right to me. And it didn't feel right in the sense that this sound to feel connection isn't there. And that always just jumps off the page when you listen to the internal Leslie sim, or we'll call it the rotary sim, I guess. You're not supposed to
Right.
say Leslie. You
Right. You
can
good.
because you're selling them, but the rotary is just it's okay. I actually think the XK4 has a better rotary than the XK5, and even that was I was still using my ventilator when I had my XK4. So then I'm like, all right, I got all these keyboard guys over here. I'll go check out this Viscount booth, and because I wanted to see the Legend One, and not only did someone hand me a pair of headphones, because I brought these Neumann and DH30s, and it was impossible to hear in NAM because they're open back. And
Right.
I was like, all right, I got my in ears. I'll put those in. So I put in my in ears and plug it in. And there was the disappointment that I thought I was going to get. I was like, oh, okay, it sounded way better online, whatever. And then I thought something here sounds really odd. Like all of the organs sounds like a mono mic'd Leslie, but then I listened to the pianos and that was mono too. So I asked our friend Brian to swap out the connector, the headphone connector, and guess what? Glorious stereo. And it immediately caused me to go, how does it sound better than the recording that they made online? Honestly.
Wow.
It
Wow.
sounds
Right.
better. Like that's the thing
Yeah.
everybody said about the Nord Organ 3. It's like Andre's amazing, great guy, wonderful organist, but that demo they uploaded was just kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
it's all right. The Viscount demos blew me away, and then I sit down and play it, and I'm
Yep.
like,
Because they expose, and not to cut you,
go ahead,
and
go ahead.
just to even add on that, it's amazing that we're doing a comparison. And as I say, for those who out there,
Yeah,
I'm
just
not bashing. We're not bashing Nord. I'm just having a
no, no. I have a
podcast of
stage
the.
four. I'm not bashing Nord.
There you go. You see, I played one today. As a
Yeah,
matter of fact, I was
yeah.
in Charleston today playing one.
Tools are tools, and
Yeah,
using the best tools for you is important. But there's something to be said because people ask me all the time, like,
honesty.
"What's the best piano for for whatever for my church for my band?" And I'm like, no, listen, you need to connect with the instrument. It needs to matter to you that this is the best sounding thing that I could get my hands on. The people out there, for the most part, unless they're like us, don't care that you have
Right,
a C7 sample, with all the pedal noise and all that happening from your keys. They don't
right.
care that you have a 122 or a 147 or whatever coming through the speakers. They just, okay, this sounds good. The music is good. It matters because you are the one who will play better, who will enjoy it more, and that's the best part about playing music, right?
Right. Yeah,
If you
because you're
really
the one.
connect
Yeah.
with your tools, if you connect with your tools and they're the best that you can get, I thought the Nord Organ 3 pre-order, again, I had that placed, was going to be the best I could get. And then I sat down and listened to a Leslie rotary simulation in the Viscount that was better than my ventilator.
Ooh.
And that's never happened before. Like the XK5, I had to throw it through the ventilator. The XK4, the same thing. There's been others, the Nord for sure. Whatever they did, and I'll say this because I played a friend of mine in Charlotte. He has a Legend, the original, and it's great. Feels great. I mean, it's a beast. Feels really. I mean, it's nice. But I never thought that the simulation of the rotary was all that great. And he even uses it with a ventilator.
Right.
And I thought, okay, these look the part. It looks like a B3. It feels great, but it just that rotary is just not quite there. Now, I don't know what they did or how they accomplished this, but a company that appears to be smaller than most of the ones who are not doing this as well has somehow figured out how to model when you throw it through a PA system that's close to your ears in stereo, it's just like having a mic to Leslie. It really is. And there's different perspectives and all that. You can get into the weeds of the different settings, but I mean everything from the side mic'd 180 degrees to the 90 and the 60 far, and I'm getting into the weeds a little bit on the settings, but
Right.
they all sound like what they're called. That sounds like you put the mics over there at that angle, and the separation. This is the thing that's really, really hard to get right. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot. You can stop me.
No, you're good.
The thing that's really hard to get right in the simulation, and even the mighty ventilator has trouble with this in my mind, is the separation of the two, the rotor and the woofer, right? When you've got that thing churning on the bottom, woo, woo, it's really hard not to have that eating into the
The
horn on
phasing.
top. Yeah, the phasing has to be. This is the thing that for me immediately kills it with the electro and the stage rotary effect because they've got a close, which is like the one I prefer, and then they've got what they now call ambient in the latest update, but it is basically
Right.
the far mic'd. And it sounds pretty good and slow when it's just doing its thing, but then you
Right.
hit fast and it phases in a way that is so unnatural and weird, especially in headphones and in ears, that I just that's what I was expecting because a little bit of the time that I had struggling with in the XK5, that's the same
Right.
thing that I encountered. It was this weird, like it's beating against each other. The frequencies
It's
are not.
agitating.
It is. It's making it worse. And then if you really want to expose that issue, whatever that is, I'm not smart enough to talk about it in engineering terms, but the turn on the C3
The chorus vibrato.
chorus, right? And you'll expose whatever that is that's not working quite well to the max.
Oh
And
yes.
that's where the Viscount, whoever and however the geniuses have done this, have figured out a way to have that Hammond C3 cranked to the max chorus while also doing a near perfect emulation of a 122 or 147 or whatever you want to set it as.
Right.
And they don't compete with one another in a way that it's like, oh, that sounds good by itself. That sounds good by itself, but don't do those together because it's just awful.
They're just eating at each other.
It doesn't. It
Right. It doesn't.
So I'm thoroughly impressed because having spent a lot of time with real Leslie speakers, it isn't usually the case that in headphones any keyboard has been able to really hold up to that.
Right.
It just doesn't sound right. It's like, okay, we really need to put that in a speaker and mic the speaker for me to really get that effect. But in this case, especially if you have open backs, it's like, dang, they did it. They really did it right. So, and here's the truth, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but if you turn off the Leslie effect in the Nord stage for the Viscount Legend one and the XK5 and just play the tones of the actual Hammond, they're not that far apart. Like the actual
Right.
the
I know where you're
sound of the
going with
tone wheels are
the tapering of the generator and
all
how
of the
close they
stuff
are.
that the generator is doing and that they're modeling. Those all sound at this point really pretty good. All of them do.
Right.
But when you turn on their simulation of the rotary, it's like, ooh, that just that separates them all instantly. It's like, okay, I know what that is. I know what that is. I know what that is.
Right.
Whereas the Viscount, if you were to record it and you did it just with straight factory settings, put that in a band mix and send it to me, I would think it was a real Leslie. And that's just about the highest praise I can give it because the
Case
ventilator
in
hasn't
point.
been plugged in since I bought this thing. So
Case
just
in point.
saying.
I had a rental on Sunday,
Yeah.
last minute,
Yeah.
and I brought my 261. I didn't brought no Leslie. I have a 142H Leslie. I have,
Yeah.
a vintage cabinet 147 with the 122. I have Rebellion amps, which y'all seen tutorials on
Mhm.
that. And I brought it to the church, and they had some form of some some music night or something like that, a night of worship or evening of worship or something like that. So I said I'm gonna go stereo with the organ, and there was a visiting organist that came in, and he came in and first he just started testing it playing, and he said, oh, this is alright with me. That was the first thing he said. He said, yeah, this is very warm. And one of my friends, he's a bishop. He walked in. He's like, "Where's the Leslie? I can't see the Leslie." I said, "Oh no, that's the internal Leslie." He said, "Oh, you got to be kidding me." And they had it. They had it. Stereo. It was some good. It was the board they had there. Excuse me. It was a Behringer X32, and it was just like how we tweaked everything up in there. It was just right. And I was at the back of the church, and I was like, "Oh my God, this thing sounds real good." Because sometimes you be playing, and yeah, nice chords and all that. But when you hear someone else play it,
Hmm.
and you're sitting in the church or sitting in the back of a room and hearing, and you're just like, "Oh wow, if it sounds like this, plug and play." Imagine when you plug an actual Leslie into
Oh yeah.
it. So I agree. Another thing I noticed, even with the Legend One internal sim, with the products, with this product, it sounds more. It just has a natural tone.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna go back to that video where Nord came out with theirs
Yeah.
and Viscount came out. It was a night and day comparison,
Oh yeah.
and this is where, and I'm gonna say this, and I don't say it to be, I'm not being mean or anything. If you're going to, and this is where Viscount wins by a landslide. Viscount did a competition with the official videos. Viscount would have won. If you're going to do an organ tutorial, organ or release of something, we need to hear the organ. Straight
Right.
organ. I don't
Right.
need to hear no guitars. I don't need to hear no drums. We need to hear the natural organ. Because when you have bands playing, it tells me that you're hiding something.
Yeah.
Okay? When I heard, the first thing that pulled me was when he was playing and he just growled the organ. And I said, ooh, I heard the overdrive didn't sound electronic. The overdrive sounded more of tubes breaking up
Hmm.
versus a solid state amp breaking up.
Yep.
And you could hear the authenticness of how it sounded and stuff. And it was just like, I'm like, oh wow, okay. And when you hear, and again, you said this again, the ramp up and down on it, it was so evident. I didn't have to even use my headphones to listen to it.
Right.
On the
You can hear it on a
Nords,
phone.
right, on the Nord, I had to listen with headphones to actually hear, because and another thing, respect to Nord and respect to Andre, he's a very good organ player.
Oh yeah.
But I could tell when he was playing it, the chord, he wasn't really playing too much chords necessarily. He was doing a lot of runs
Mm.
and so forth. And that has nothing to do with the organ player. That's not what I'm saying. But we're talking about hearing the raw, unadulterated organ. If
Hmm.
that makes sense. So that was just my little on the north side right there, and I expected more. I really expected more. I told somebody, a couple people, I said it's just a copy, and I really, and this is the thing. Please do not say it's a triple sensor, because that's not how a vintage organ works. We don't do triple sensors. We do contacts. We have to tell the truth. Because when I press down, I need to hear contacts.
All nine.
That's the all. Oh, don't go there. You
All of
know,
them.
all nine, because this, and why I'm going like this, because most of the clone wheel organs are coming after the
Hmm.
original Hammond. To
Hmm.
say, okay, buy this, because guess what? We our organs, and this is why when I tell people, okay, buy Viscount. Why? We have, first of all, we have the nine contacts before we even. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Ben.
Only in the Legend Soul,
In the Legend Soul, yes, thank
not
you.
the one, just to be clear.
Not the
Because
one. Yeah,
I made this unclear on a forum post and I had to go back pedal it because
right.
yeah. But
But it uses the Soul engine.
it does it
Yeah,
does. It
it
does,
uses
yes.
the Soul engine.
Yeah, but the Soul 261, which is the 273 without the presets
Yeah,
essentially,
brothers.
is the 273 and the 261 are just truthfully what the Nord Organ 3 should be.
Yeah.
Just it just is. Now I will say there's some stuff that's fun about the Nord Oregon 3, and
Oh yeah.
there's some really, I mean, they built it really well. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
if I have to have some niggles, the Soul series has a little bit of some knobs I don't love because they're not as
Right.
tight. Now, here's an interesting thing, because I was real close to buying. I didn't tell Delroy this either. I was close to buying a 261 at NAM, and they turned the lights off like that last 5 minutes that I was trying to play it. And anyway, I had to go home, but that might still happen one day. But one thing that
Right.
just jumped out at me immediately is, oh, okay, the Soul has been around for a while. They had the Legend, and they had the Soul and the
Mm-hmm.
Joey DeFrancesco version and all that. But they've learned not just in the developmental software and firmware and
Mm-hmm.
all that, they've actually really done a great job. And back to the build quality thing I was talking about earlier, the 73 and the 61 are
Mm-hmm.
really well put together. Like they don't have any loose parts. Just to pick on another company for a minute, when I bought, how deep do I want to go into this? When I got a Roland, really recent Roland keyboard, and I started moving some stuff on it.
Right.
This was the Juno X. I'll just tell you, I was like, oh boy, this costs too much to be that fragile,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to do a repair on it, and that just exposed for me when I opened it up all the plastic that was in there and the real tiny metal pieces, and the shafts on the knobs are just real fragile. And so one of the very first things I do when I go and check out an instrument in person is I try and damage it. I'm not trying to break it, but I am trying to see if, okay, if I'm not looking at
Right.
it just right and I hit that knob with my arm instead of my finger, like, is it going to break off? Is this going to have, and really, honestly, the the build quality of the Legend 1 exceeds that, sorry, of the Soul series.
Right.
It just does. It's a better made instrument.
Yeah, it's stronger.
It's also better made than the XK5. It's
Really.
better than the XK4. It's really on par with Nord's build quality in terms of their electros and stages. And that was part of the reason that I placed a order with Delroy that day at the booth. It
Mm-hmm.
was like, it sounds better than it did online.
Right.
When you hear a band in person that sounds better than their studio track, it's like, okay, that's. And so I placed the order, and I thought, well, that's the demos on the floor. They're probably not that great in person, but I got it. It
Right.
ships from Stony Point. I get it, and I open it up, and I was just thoroughly impressed with how well these things are made.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even
And
down to
coming
like,
from Italy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Even down to like the box the thing ships in is substantially better than what's coming from our friends in Sweden. It's just a better,
I lived in Alaska, and my
well
first
thought out.
Viscount,
Yeah, it just the shipping,
just
it's gonna survive stuff that other companies boards, unless they're like triple boxed,
case in point. As
aren't.
much as even the soul it may not necessarily be as stronger, but I would say, and
It's
for
still
me, I
great.
think
I'm
it's
not
still
saying it's
no, no, no.
all,
Not saying you are right,
no.
but I'm gonna add this here. I remember, I remember I was lifting it and it slipped through my hand and hit on the floor, and I said, God, I say, I gotta open this up now because I guess I'm gonna break. I turned that joint on. That thing turned on, no issues.
Yeah.
And I've had it for now almost going 3 years.
I mean, the truth is, if you start wiggling things on most stuff, it will expose,
And
weaknesses
I've had a
in
lot of
everything. Yeah.
rentals on my 261.
Yeah.
And we're talking about organ players. Like in my church, in Pentecostal churches, we play hands on, heavy.
Oh,
So it's getting
you
it's
beat the
getting
hell out of those things. I'm like, oh, that hurts, and I'm not an organ.
right. Screaming and wow and
Yeah,
all
just
that.
all
And it held up.
yeah,
Have
for
no
sure.
issues or anything
Well,
of
to
that
that
sort.
end, talk to me. I don't, because I haven't got a real clear answer on this yet. Talk to me about the warranty, the Viscount warranty. What's that like?
All right, so the warranty for the organs they give you, I know they said 2 years. It used to be where, and I think they're probably going to do that as well. But this is why I know it's like 2 or 3 years, two
Yeah.
or 3 years or something like that. But back then, I remember they used to give you like I think it was 2 or 3 years, and then you could have renewed, like you paid, because I remember that year it was 2017 when I got it,
Hmm.
where you could pay a subscription for another year or something like that, year and a half or whatever not, where you could extend. I'm sorry, the
Yeah.
warranty.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I'm gonna say this, my Legend, um, Viscount Legend, the blonde one that I had. I'm sorry. It's with a church I, play for in Alaska. They have it, and that organ is still kicking. And that was from I left it 2019. I had the organ for 2017, and now we're in 2025. We're going to a 3300. Um, of course, because at the time Viscount didn't make their speakers yet, except the Hurricane. But the organ, I saw pictures of the organ, and the organ is no scratches, no nothing. They kept it real good. But the organ is kicking, no issues, no problems. I think, and we're not trying to emphasize mostly. In a way, yes, we are, because at the end of the day, when you buy something, you don't only want a instrument that sounds good, but the quality is horrible. Or you want vice versa. The equipment has looks good, but the software is horrible.
There's a certain company that starts with a C from Italy that has that issue. I'll just say
Okay. Mm.
we're not
But
going to name
yes,
them, but they're real close to.
you know who and you
Yeah.
know what. Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of the things that turned me off, by the way, from the Mojo and their whole line. First of
Right.
all, it's a Windows computer running Windows software, and the way that you access the changes and all that. And I'm not saying Crewmar is a bad company. They've really done some great things. I mean, their software, their GSI
Right.
VB3 software is pretty great. I mean, $14 on your iPhone, you can take the B3 with you. It's great,
That's a deal.
fantastic. But the track record and build quality has not been great for a lot of people.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that just would immediately, if I start searching online, it's like, oh yeah, I had one of those and one of those and one of those, and this is not what I would get again.
Right.
And here's the thing that was really impressive when they released the update: the way that you load the update is probably the fastest, simplest, most streamlined way to update a keyboard that exists, except maybe Nord's software where you plug it into the
Right.
computer and do it that way. It's great. When I had a Phantom, not to pick on Roland necessarily, it took like 14 different files to update that thing, and it was a process. I mean, Ed Diaz is an amazing support guy. He's a fantastic individual, but holy cow, his tutorial about how to update that thing is so detailed and long and specific and tedious. And here's the thing, if you let's just say you get yourself a Legend one and you're like, okay, but they released this update and I'm not a technical person, what am I going to do?
Hmm.
I have a friend, I won't even tell you his name, who also is now the very happy owner of a Legend 1. And I walked him through the update. He's not tech savvy. His kids are usually the ones who help him with stuff on his computer.
Right.
We airdropped it from his phone to his Mac, and then I helped him get it onto a USB drive, and he
Right.
updated it with no problems. Both the sound file and the firmware update are just it's the easiest process you've ever seen. Even the Yamaha YC and CP series isn't this simple. Just
Really.
fantastic, easy, no problem. If you've got something with things like 30 gigabytes or more on it, you can do the update and you can do it if you've never done it in your life. It's just
Right.
fantastically easy to do the technical stuff with these keyboards. And I'm hoping for an editor like the other stuff that they've released has maybe eventually. But even if you don't have that, the simplicity of the menus, it's it could be a lot more involved and tedious and hard to get to stuff. That's one of the things that I will criticize Nord about when they released the Stage 4. they kind of lost for me a little bit of that knob per function, no menu diving thing that they've been so proud of
Mm,
and that they've been so good at. Because there's
right.
quite a bit of menu diving and extra shift this and change, a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And it's still a great instrument, but there's almost none of that on the Viscount. Like it has no shift, hold this, change that, move over to this. Like what you see is what you get. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Brian said it pretty well. If it's red, you can press it. So it's like the knobs. I never thought about that, but he's right. If the knob is red, it's inviting you to dive deeper into
Mm-hmm.
section one, section two, whatever the effects, and just the simplicity of the way this thing is laid out. And I'll talk a minute about the Studio Logic brand of controllers. I have an SL88 Grand that I use for keyboards and to control my Nord. It's
Right.
great, but it is not simple. And their interface, the user interface, and they've got a new update with their piano Numa stuff and all that. It's kind of trickling down and becoming all similar. It is not easy for people to get their minds around the way that works right off the bat. And even though there's some stuff in the Legend 1 that I've discovered with new update and all that, I never had to go into the manual and go, "Oh my gosh, I just can't find that. Where is that thing?" Basically, if you go through the list of parameters and you click on what seems similar, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to adjust one of the things they did in the new update. Um, was added. I'm not sure the exact term for it, but I'm going to call it high trigger. So when you
Mm-hmm.
when you press down on the key, initial touch, maybe something like that, you get the organ sounding quicker than it would
Right.
normally, right? Whereas the pianos and other sounds, you have to press the key further to get that to sound.
Right.
And even though not all Hammonds operate that way,
Right.
that's kind of what we're used to is that because of those 9 bar contacts in the drawbar contacts in the I should call them maybe bus bars to be proper in the real organs, you do actually hear the sound almost instantly when you depress the key, even though all 9 of them are not sounding at the same time. And so to have that same initial attack and adjustment on the keyboard is great. So I'm like, okay, they added that update. Where is it? Well, there's a menu general under menu general tune and keyboard, and it's like that makes sense. The keyboard would be the thing we're adjusting. Guess what? That's where the initial touch, high trigger, whatever you call it, lives.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. It's intuitive. It's easy. If you're somebody out there who's like, I'm 75 years old, I'm a weekend warrior, I don't have time to dive into the montage manual and get into
75
the,
years.
all the, seriously, there's some serious guys. I mean, I know a couple of them who were like in their early 70s and still doing this all the time.
Wow.
And they asked me, a couple of them, like, how hard is this thing to use? Like, am I going to have to learn a whole new process? I'm like, honestly, spend a day with it and you'll know everything about it.
See.
Seriously. And I'm still trying to figure out how to get to some stuff on the XK5. So I'm just saying, like, if you're worried
Yeah.
about the simplicity and trying to get this instrument into your head as a new tool in your arsenal, if you're even a little bit capable of reading and pushing buttons, you'll be
Right.
fine. You'll be fine.
I'm gonna say this for those who are coming in and watching, because we have a lot of people coming in and out. People what really watching. If you have any comments or questions
Yeah.
regarding this podcast, it's also welcome. So yeah, don't be shy. You can ask the questions and so forth. Um, Let me ask you this. In your words, in your rating, 10 being the most, one being it suck. What is your overall rating with the Viscount products?
Well, I
We
don't
talk.
have extensive experience with all of them in the lineup, but
Well, let's say for the Legend one, because I know you said you played the soul, but you didn't have enough
I didn't have a
time.
lot of time with it. Yeah,
Yeah,
they literally turned the lights off at NAM, and it was like,
yeah,
it's five
I
o'clock.
remember.
What's going on? Oh, I was so mad. Anyway, um, I will
Excuse
say
me.
so that there's an issue that Viscount has not hidden, and that they'll be happy to talk about if you talk to them. They're still working out some stuff with Apple's latest firmware and drivers and internal stuff in both the Mac and iOS systems, so that here's how it basically it manifests when you've got a US. This isn't a Windows issue, by the way. If you've got a Windows computer, this doesn't happen.
Right.
But the Apple side of things, they're still working on this issue. This is true across the Legend series. It's true across the Legend 70s. It's true across all anything that has an audio slash MIDI interface built into it over USB. This
Right.
applies to. So basically, when you bring up a MIDI plug-in VST virtual instrument, whatever, on your iOS or Mac OS device, when you play that from the Viscount, which it will do, and it works great,
Right.
it has some cracks and pops occasionally. Now, this is the thing, by the way, that I sent the inquiry, let's call it, complaint to Viscount about, both on their website as well as straight through Delroy and on the forum. And within hours, both the non-official for, like back channels, let's call it, had responded, but also presumably somebody else in a different building in Italy got right back to me like that day. Actually, it was in the middle of the night for us, so it would have been the next day. But
Late in the midnight
it,
hour of the night.
yeah, it was so fast. They responded and said, first of all, thank you for bringing this to our attention. We're well aware of it. We know about it. We are working on it, and we're going to fix it in an update.
See,
And
and they're telling you that it's known,
they're
it's an
telling
issue.
us that it isn't like, oh, this is a thing that I have always hated about some companies. Apple's really bad about this. This is just the culture, and I used to work for them, so I can say this. Nobody should ever, it's the Donald Trump thing. Don't ever admit when something's wrong.
Right.
Don't admit when you have a flaw or you have a problem. Oh no, I'm the best. It's the greatest. It'll even get better as we go. No, you got an issue. I've found it. Other people have found it. We admit it. This is what's happening.
Right.
It's not a Viscount issue. It's because it works with Windows and it works with Linux and it works with other stuff. But the Apple side of things is not quite there yet.
Right.
Blame Apple, blame whoever, doesn't matter. The fact that the company is on that and responded to me in that way with a lot of humility was
Mm.
was really eye-opening. And so part of my rating for the company and their products includes that experience. And so I don't know if I can say everything is 10 out of 10 because there's an issue and they're working on
Right.
it. So I'm going to say 8.5.
Now I
Be-
see something in the, not to cut you, I see somebody in the live chat.
Yeah.
Timothy Brown. He says, "How's the transpose? Do the keys and pedals shift? I'm still learning all my keys. Nobody has done a demo. Also, how does the four memory buttons work?
Oh, that's a good one. You want to answer this or you want me to?
You right here. He's the
Okay. So
boss. Yes.
his first thing was transpose. So here's something that might not be obvious right off the bat when you're looking at these instruments. You have not just the ability to transpose the whole instrument with literal transpose buttons on the
Right.
front, which a lot of companies don't do. Like it literally shifts an octave up or down right there on the front. And if you hit shift and hit transpose, you can do that as well. But the individual parts of the keyboard, so we'll talk about the organ section. Obviously, you got two sets of drawbars and pedal bars on this thing. It's very organ central. But also, section one, sound one, and sound two all have their own individual octave shift and transpose. So you could get yourself in trouble with this if you don't know what transpose does, but octave shift in particular is really helpful because let's say you've got a piano and you want to put some strings under it. This is a thing that usually happens when guys try to layer strings and piano. They almost always run into problems when they get up into the upper parts of the register because it's like, oh, those strings are sampled really bad and they're stretched and it sounds so shrill when you're playing those high notes. So what do you do? Not that I'm saying that that's the case with the sounds in the Viscount. It's not. They're actually excellent. But you probably want to drop your strings or your layered part an octave, maybe two, while you're playing up here. And maybe if I'm doing a layer, which by the way, the mighty Montage M started to spit and sputter when you asked it to play a piano, a
Wow.
full-blown all drawbars out organ. That's part of the reason I sent it back, and another a pad sample. It just
Really?
couldn't handle it. Like, come on, Yamaha. Just it drives me crazy. 400 voices of polyphony, kinda. You kind of have to nuance that. The Viscount has no issues with polyphony. It's been
Right.
fantastic. Um, just like Nord level reliability in terms of your
Mm-hmm.
polyphony. You're never going to run out of notes unless you just lay on it or something. But I've not had any issues with that. So back to your
Right.
question, Timothy. You or Tim, sorry, I don't know, I don't remember your.
Yeah, no, you're right. Timothy
Is it
Brown.
Timothy? Timothy Brown. Okay. You can transpose within each section, organ, section one, section two, or sound one and sound two as it's labeled on the front.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do an overall global shift in a couple of different menus, but also right there on the front to your left as you're looking at your instrument. It's right there beside like overdrive and reverb and all that over there in that little left section. And
Right.
then the other question was, what was the other question? He had two
Any
parts.
question? Oh, okay, I'm gonna go before I go to the next part.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read it over again. But for anybody else that has any questions, any comments is welcome. Regarding the Viscount Soul series, the Legend One series as well. Please post them because, as I said, I'm here, Ben is here, and Ben, as I will say, I did a tutorial on the Legend One. It was very, people very. It was really good for people to really come in. 12. It was a Sunday morning. 12 Monday morning, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and
Yeah,
it was
we're
crazy. I was doing that. I'm like, I was tired, but I said I have to do it for the people. But everyone came out and asked questions. Now back to Timothy. Timothy Brown was saying, would you answer that part? How is the transpose? Do the keys and
Oh, the
pedals
pedals.
shift?
Yes, they both can be shifted because technically speaking, you don't have three parts on the Legend one. You have four. You have the pedals, which is separately addressable through MIDI, so it can be its own section. And by the way, that isn't just tone wheel. It's also other kinds of organs, pipe organ, vox, farfisa. It's also synth sounds, which are really good bass synth
Mm-hmm.
sounds, TB303 and 808 stuff in there. Um, sorry, the 808 is a drum machine. The 303,
Mm-hmm.
there's good acoustic bass sounds, slap bass. I think there's an electric bass, like a Fender P series or something. All that is in there, and that can be shifted, yes, individually, because inside of your menus, you also have a dedicated pedals section.
Right.
And all that can be adjusted, by the way, not just the octave and the transpose, but also like attack, decay, sustain. If you want those notes to sustain further, the split point, where it folds back on itself if you're doing the organ, all that.
Right.
Anyway, so I think that answers that question pretty well. What was the other
And
part of his question?
nobody has done a demo. And how does the four memory buttons
Oh,
work?
the memories. Yes, this is great. Okay, this is really great. This is an interesting thing that I've never seen another company do.
And Warren, I'm coming to your next question as well as someone else. I know Warren, but
Cool.
you could answer this one real quick. Hmm.
Yeah, so memories is interesting. You can actually use memories the same way that you would think of preset keys on a Hammond or a 273 like he has behind him. Uh, because here's
Right.
how it works. Basically, you aren't this it's a little bit complicated when you first think about it because it's like, okay, am I making a new version of this sound? No.
Hmm.
So here's let's just lay out the scenario. I'm going to use this as if we're just giving each memory button of the four, I think it's A, B, C, and D, a different drawbar setting for just a single organ.
Right.
Okay, so what you do is you create your sound, or you bring up a factory patch, and what you do is make sure memory is on. So you just literally press the memory button, and then you hold down memory, let's say A, and whatever the drawbar settings, assuming that your drawbars are on and that this is in
Right.
manual mode, are get saved to that memory button. This and it'll even say save to memory. It's not like hold it down, press save, make sure. Are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? Press again, all that. It's just like instant, it saves. And then you do the same thing for B. Maybe you want just your first four out, save that onto B. And then maybe I just want one of my favorite settings is to take the to third and fourth drawbar and then the last one out a little,
Hmm.
maybe three or four on that and save that maybe to memory button A, B, C, C. I had
Right.
to think about it for a second. And then let's say, okay, I got plenty of organ going there. I want to also, just for fun, let's throw in a piano on top of the organ. And so then I'll save that to memory D.
Right.
And what you want to make sure you do, if you make any big changes, like talking about like adding extra sounds or things like that, you want to save that program. I think they call them programs
Mm-hmm.
to that slot. Okay, not the memory slot, but the actual program slot. Like let's say it's called piano and strings something or
Right.
J piano B3 or whatever. You want to save whatever changes you've made either to a new slot or to that slot
Mm-hmm.
because even though you don't necessarily have, all your drawbars out the way that memory D has them when you bring up that patch, you
Right.
do want the patch to reflect the fact that you have piano on because by the time you get to your last memory button, you do in fact have piano on. Now, does that mean the piano then becomes on for A, B, and C? No. So in that way, not only can you recall your drawbar settings from the drawbars themselves, this is pretty easy to figure out once you just like, oh, okay, on, on.
Right.
Whatever the drawbars are set at, that's what you get. But also, because you can restore these things to your memory buttons, you actually get edited versions essentially of the master patch, the master program that you can save to those buttons. And the best part is turn your keyboard off and turn it back on. Those memories are they're
Mm-hmm.
actually saved in there per program. So you on the Nord Stage 4, for example, you have something called layer 2, layer section 2,
Mm-hmm.
which gives you a similar thing,
Mm-hmm.
but basically it's only one button that can do that. So if your main sound has your organ, piano, and pad on it, maybe your layer section 2 or whatever it's called, I think I'm saying that wrong, just
Mm-hmm.
has piano. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. That's what my button does. I got one
Right.
button that can alter the sound. In the case of the Viscount, you have four different versions of that same sound. And
Right.
especially if you're somebody who's doing the, back and forth on the preset keys on a Hammond, you could actually treat
Mm-hmm.
those that same way. So it's
Right.
really, really interesting. I've never seen another company do that quite that way and that well. And just even though it's like, what memories, and you press it and it does nothing, if you do what I just described, you'll find that
Mm-hmm.
this is something that you're going to really, really take advantage of. It's great.
Right. And also, the question was, I think probably I could answer this one.
Yeah.
The soul, does the Legend Soul transpose? Yes, it does. Um, if you have the Soul 261, which I'm looking at right now, you can't see it, but you see the 273. There is a transpose button that is right beside on the top left cheek blocked under edit. That's where you press the transpose button and you hold it and you use the knob and you can turn it. I think it's from 6 to minus or whatever, not negative. And then also say for example you want to come out of transpose. You click on exit and you're on that same bank. You will see like a plus. All you just need to do is click on transpose and you're off. I don't do transpose, but that was a good
Because he can
question.
play in every key.
I play never key,
I don't
but
play in every key. I need the transpose button.
but I will say this. There are a lot of storefront churches here in South Carolina, and a lot of musicians. I would well let me tell you that you have some musicians down here. They transpose. I'm not a fan of transpose because I believe in learning your craft, but everybody has to start from somewhere. So I'm not going to really rebuke and become a slave master to say you deserve it. Get back to work. You need to go back and play in all your keys. No, some people start from transposing and then I know of a friend who transposed and right now he's playing the Hammond, a vintage Hammond, even the Viscount without transposing, and he can play in all of his keys. So people start from everywhere, but don't use transpose to be. Don't let it be a crutch.
Yeah, because if you got your legend or your soul or your whatever, and that's
Mm-hmm.
great. But let's say you get invited to grandma's church and they have the real thing, you're gonna be in trouble when you can't play an E flat.
You better not. And please don't try to detune the organ.
Oh, it's doable,
Please
but you
don't do
shouldn't
it.
do it.
Please don't try to and try to say, let me experiment on starting the organ the wrong way, cause
Oh,
it ain't gonna
geez.
sound right.
I did that before.
It ain't gonna sound
It
right,
was it
and you
was
gonna
like
miss.
I did it before and I didn't give it enough time to start up and it actually this was a C3. It it was like half a step out of tune all the time until I
Oh,
fixed it.
I can't stand when he does that. But so those are the fundamental stuff that I like with Viscount, and also you can with the Soul series. I'm gonna say this too. I forgot to put this out here, real quick. I've found a way where you can send on the rear panel. There's a connection where you can send the bass um, out where you if you don't want the whoop 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 whoop, you go into your auxiliary or something like that. I think somewhere in your effects and whatever not, you can route the sound. Meaning you'll get the whoop whoop using the organ sound if you're using the internal sim, right? But if you want to run it through something else, you could just do it on. It's just crazy because you have jazz players that don't like that they don't like that they don't like that wobble, so stuff like that, So, but there's a lot of stuff. But I will say, be on the lookout because this is not the end of Viscount. There is more stuff that will be coming. I cannot say much, but all I know is that the weather is about to change. So, everybody, let me see anybody else that has anything. Benjamin, before we wrap up, do you have anything else to say regarding? And I think this was a very good um, podcast, really starting, having you because, you have tested a lot of equipments from different manufacturers. And you have seen the good, the bad, the ugly, the pros and the cons, the strengths, the weakness, and what they can do and what they should not do. And
Yeah, that brings up a good point. Yeah, so this is a thing that I'll call out.
uh-oh,
Shame on you, Roland, and here's why. Um, I bought
I
a,
felt that.
a V
And
stage.
and I'm Viscount.
I bought a V stage 88, Roland V stage 88, because part of the reason, even though I didn't think the organ in it was amazing, the Leslie, all that, it can be adjusted and made to sound pretty good, but I loved that they made this thing out to be the great new, center of your studio. This is going to be the controller to access all your virtual instruments and main stage and all this. And so I bought one and I tried plug my iPad into it, playing Piano Tech and all that. Just it's working great. And then I'm like, all right, I'm gonna bring up B3X or VB3 or whatever your favorite gospel organ or whatever. I
Right?
actually I actually think the gospel organ is probably one of the worst ones. But anyway, the drawbars or harmonic bars, to use Roland's words,
Right.
in the V stage don't do MIDI CC. They will send system exclusive messages, which you have to have a converter to get all that to talk to each other, but they do not do MIDI CC. So the very first thing that I did when I got my Legend 1 is plugged it into my iPad, hit learn, and moved some things around. And guess what? This sub $2,000 instrument, right off the bat, right out of the box, with no adjustments, sends MIDI CC from all of its drawbars without any issues. So once you get the whatever the Apple incompatibility thing is, with
Right.
the pops and the cracks fixed and figured out. And I don't mean you. I know you're not
Right. Right.
the one doing that. But once they figure that out, you have not just what I consider to be the best clone wheel organ in hardware at this point in time. Even the endorsed guys who are like endorsed by Mag have said this is absolutely the best hardware
Hmm.
clone wheel organ. Mitch Town, I'll just say his name.
Shout out to Mr. Midtown. Yes, sir.
Ridiculously good musician, fantastic, better than I'll ever be. He's really, really picky and really familiar
Right.
with what these instruments are supposed to do. And he's like,
Hmm.
I'm gonna hit this A100 patch. I'm gonna click on this Leslie. I'm gonna go all the way up to the high C, and oh, only my A100 does that. That's kind of how you put it on the forum.
Right.
So what I'm getting at is, even though this is an amazing instrument, as is, yes, maybe we want to explore some software. We want to try out some stuff, some gospel organs, some VB3s, some B3X, all these
Right.
different plugins. Hey, maybe Viscount will have a software organ one day. Who knows? Whatever that looks like. The fact that you can just plug in your instrument and everything works for under $2,000, or if you're in the case of the 61, way under $2,000, is just, it's so gratifying because the mighty Japanese giants, Yamaha and Roland, just don't get it, and they don't do that. And to be fair, Nord does, although Nord should talk about putting a interface that does audio and MIDI in their
Right.
keyboard. I mean, that feature alone is usually enough to really bring up the price of an instrument. So whether they're just trying to like break into the market and things are just cheap or whatever, I would say this: the amount of bang for buck that you get with the Legend 1.
Hmm.
Okay, so the pianos need a little work. The
Right.
electric pianos need a little work. They're really good in a busy band mix, okay?
Right.
They're really good if you hook them up to a controller. Playing from the keys themselves, you won't necessarily get this, but if you plug it into an 88 key
Right.
controller and really they really hold their own. And I will say, sorry, Hammond, but the stuff that they threw into the SK is just not even close
Mm.
to what Viscount's doing.
Mm.
And so the fact that you get those extra sounds that
Right.
are good to great in almost all cases, on top of the best organ engine and rotary simulation that's out there,
Plug and play. That's where I was going to go
the
to real
value
quick.
proposition is off the charts. It really is.
Yeah.
And even if you just use it as a MIDI controller to play other organ stuff, it just works.
And I'm glad you said that too, not to cut you, because when I used to, I remember, and that's why I met Mitch Town and a lot of couple of
Yeah.
people. I used to use like the different organ softwares via MIDI, and it picked it up real good on the Viscount,
Yeah.
on the Legend.
Works
That
great.
was before the Soul, way before the
Yeah.
Soul came out, and stuff. And someone else just put a statement out there, but I'm gonna read it real quick. And but Viscount is so they're making their stuff where, and I'm gonna say this to everyone. Now with the Legend one is where it's at, where it's plug and play. You don't necessarily have to tweak nothing,
No,
nothing.
if
But
you're really picky,
also,
you can.
you're right. If
Yeah.
you're a guy like me or Ben or somebody else in the lab, like I'm in the lab, who wants to make my settings and so forth, but I have to say, out the box,
Mm.
it's plug and play. You can plug it stereo via stereo through any system, and it sounds very, very good for the organ, in the organ sections. Someone asks, okay, now we have some people coming in here. Timothy Brown again says, hopefully they will throw in the engine of the Viscount Legend 70s for the EPs. I don't know if they can do that through software or if it's hardware. Thanks for the answers, guys. Now, Timothy Brown says, last, last one. Does the Leslie Sim have to be off to run to external Leslie? No.
No.
I no, because it disables it when you go in via 11 pin. And I've experienced that with any Viscount models, whether it's from the Legend going to the Soul, the JDF model from the Legend to JDF, the Soul series, or the Legend one. Once you plug the 11 pin, it bypasses the internal sim. Now there is a setting, and I don't know. I think you probably have seen it, Ben, where is something about the external on the Legend one where you can do LNR and rotary or something like that. Like you can send.
Yeah, you can adjust what gets sent to all of
Yeah,
its outputs.
and that's crazy.
It is because let's just take the Yamaha YC for example. for a long time because it doesn't have multiple outputs. Um, People complained about, okay, I got to get my ventilator out and plug this in because it's a great keyboard in a lot of ways, but Yamaha was like, okay, fine, we'll give you left and right panning after 3 years of people begging. Like all that out of the gate is right there in the Legend One. You can do
Yep.
mono left, mono right, left and right. You can do it's quite a combination of stuff. And out of the sub outs or aux outs, whatever they call them, and the main outs and the rotary, you can send things different ways. So like if you did want to send your bass from the internal rotary sim to like a subwoofer at church,
Right.
you can do that. Just super easy. It's very, very easy to use.
It is.
It's almost like musicians designed this thing, you know, not engineers.
Right. So yeah, you can. I don't know. Viscount is going into they're moving in a stage right now where I'm gonna be honest with y'all. If y'all don't be careful, Viscount will just overrule all these companies in the organ, and if not possible, I know possible in the pianos and all the sound. Because I'll say this, if I remember there was a post and some people were tagging me in and mentioned my name saying that the Viscount internal sim was trash, and I told them I said
Mm.
just wait. And if it took one update to change the course of buyers' perspective, okay, if I can get this for this price and just one update versus 5 years of a company that made a copy of a copy. No disrespect, they got good stuff. Sounds good, but I think it's just overrated.
It sounds good, but it doesn't sound like a
And it's too
B3 and
polished.
Leslie.
Yeah, it's just too polished for my. It's just too polished. You don't get now going to an external lesson. The North, organ three sounds good, but the Viscount Legend One in with and out of a Leslie, it's just like I'm getting best of both worlds. And see now, okay, I'm on my. I don't know about y'all. I'm getting my house soon, but anyway, praise God, I'm grateful for that. But I'm on the third floor,
Mm.
and this is 11:20 at night, p.m. right now. Okay, I don't really want to use my Leslies to disturb my neighbor for them to be like doing all that. Okay, but when and this is where I'm like, if Viking can do stuff like this right now, I mostly use my internal sim in my headphones than my Leslie's. The only time I do that, unless I'm doing a tutorial of promoting this or like Booker Labs, for example, or anything. So it's just like and I have to say, with the models of how, and you said this too, Ben, and I'm glad you really exposed that. But Viscount, with the models, how they model it, and it's sampled and modeled. I mean, modeled the sound engineer and how it's modeled. You can tell the difference. And I have to say, I will tell you all this. I cloned a friend of mine's B3 using the Viscount at a convention. They call it the AIM Auxiliaries in Ministry Church of God in Christ, and I cloned it, and we had organists, we had a lot of people who was from also from the Nord company, artists and so forth, and other folks. And when they played it, it was going to 122 at the time, and they were looking at the B3 like, okay, which one is which?
Hmm.
you know so I'm saying in the future with Viscount, the future is bright, and if they can make one update that can change, imagine what they will do to their pianos. I don't underestimate any companies now. I think this year, and
My
Sebastian
battery's
said
about
this
to die.
too.
I gotta plug my computer in.
Oh, okay, that's fine. But yeah, how these companies are going with these. The competition this year has been real, crazy, like real, really, really crazy. Like everybody's stepping up, and I have to say, Viscount has come a long way. With their products, they have their pros, they have their cons, but right now, Viscount is the leading sounding, best sounding organ out there as regards to whether and out inside, plug and play, whatever not, going through an external. And I'll say this, even with all clone wheels, I tell people this. They say some people are like, oh yeah, the internal Leslie. Okay, as much as the internal Leslie sounds good, there will be no, unless technology has done it somewhere, which I'm not going to underestimate that. But you still, the physics of how a Leslie is, the very physics.
You can't move air with ones and zeros.
Right. The very way how a Leslie operates. And also, one goes clockwise while the other goes anti-clockwise. So, that's another stage of phasing
Mm.
the air, the motors and all them belts and the phasing of how when the belts get loose and old and that, so it's a lot of stuff. The amp stagings of the amplifier, both in the organ and also in the Leslie. We talking about caps being aged, caps that's being losing tolerance, caps that need to be replaced. Those are the stuff that affects, bad tubes causing, and this is another thing. I'm gonna put this right. Or, some people mistake distortion for bad distortion. Natural distortion, when you have a tubeless and it's rebuilt right, your organ should be clean. You have a,
Hmm.
but there at the but at certain volumes. I put it this way, and that's why I like with this internal sim. And I think Ben, you know where I'm going with this. Tubes versus solid state. The tubes would remind me of computer chips that does the overclocking stages
Okay.
when they're under hard processing of applications, hard, heavy applications. It would be just like when you drive the organ and you're pushing it beyond, and the gain stage is starting to come up, and the tubes are getting, it overclocks and produces this natural thing called distortion. Versus with a solid state distortion, um, the solid state, it distorts, but that's most it can go. The limitations of it, it can't, if that
Right.
makes sense.
It's instead of breaking up, the tube sound is more like all aspects of the sound are breaking apart. Whereas
Right.
the solid state sound is more like you're hitting a ceiling and everything's getting smashed.
Right.
That's
Versus
how.
like just like computer chips, you have some chips that will overclock and some chips cannot. And if I just use that as a good as a scenario. And this is where I like with how Viscount is programming their stuff, getting fine tuning all their stuff. And I'm telling you guys, I'm telling y'all, please be on the lookout, because when I say the weather is about to change, the weather is about to change drastically. I do not. I've always had fun, high hopes with Viscount, um, and now they're starting to really show who they are and their true colors of what they're capable of doing. You know, so shout out to the team, Mr. Francesco Verni and the Viscount family from Italy, Miss Loriana, Mr. Enzo,
That's
um,
him. That's who I couldn't remember
oh,
his name.
Enzo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Enzo, very good. I love Mr. Enzo. And Jacopo. I think that's how they pronounce it, Jacopo. Um, Mr. J Valley, Brian Ho, Gary and all his father as well, all the Viscount team, Pat Beyond, Brian Ho, um, you
Juke.
know, I, Duke, yes, Duke, yeah, yeah. I really appreciate them so much because we just like a family. I'm really blessed to be a part of a company that really supported. They have really, like last year, they send me out to do the church stuff. And I'm grateful for that. And they're showing themselves more in the churches now, especially in the South. And I mean, everywhere. A lot of churches like, hey, man, I see this Viscount, man. Hey, man. Like last year, a lot of people thought it was a Hammond. It was like, is that a Hammond? I remember an old lady, she came over. Say, sound like a Hammond. I was like, yeah, but it's a Viscount. She said, what's a Viscount? I never heard of the Viscount. Sound like a Hammond to me. you know So it tells you when you have a company that's starting to model and sounds exactly, if not identical to the vintage, it's really showing the influence and power of what they're capable of. So even with the pianos and so forth, and I'll say this, the pianos are, I mean, we know. I mean, Nord Stage, of course. Nord is known, and I'll give every company their credits, and I'll give them their rebukes anyway. But but I will say, I ain't gonna lie. When I played the German Grand, and the other stuff that Viscount had, the few pianos that they had, it really wasn't that bad,
No, and the
especially for the price. Because sometimes some companies they'll give you a good organ sample,
yeah.
and then the other sounds is trash.
Well, the sound that jumped out at me immediately when I started playing it was the Whirly, the 140B. First,
Yeah.
first of all, nobody is sampling a 140B. You always get the 200A, no matter what keyboard it is.
Mm-hmm.
Always. I mean, the only thing I've ever seen that had 140B in it was Keyscape,
Right.
and they have a 200 too. But it's a really really good sample. Um, Plus, you have attack noise, release noise, decay, sustain. Like,
Right.
even if it doesn't have the Legend 70s full blown modeling, physical modeling thing
Capabilities.
going
Mm-hmm.
on, they clearly are drawing from some of that same heritage with what I can only compare to like Roland's V piano adjustability, right? Even the piano has, and this really surprised me, it has string resonance that can be adjusted. Like even the Yamaha CP and YC don't have string resonance; they have damper resonance, kinda. But yeah, the initial offering again, I think of this. I thought of it as a clearly it's an organ centric thing. It has two sets of drawbars and the pedals bars. It's like okay, fantastic organs, and then you play the piano, and really it sounds to me, I could be wrong about this, but it sounds to me like these sounds have been designed to really work well in layers. It
Mm-hmm.
really sounds like, you know, even though I probably wouldn't solo with the American Grand, let's say,
Right.
uh, it really works well under or over, you could say, the organ and with a
Right.
pad under it. They really blend well together and they jump out well in a mix. And I will say, with the latest update, this really surprised me. They became more dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
The pianos became more dynamic. Even just played from the 73 keys,
Right.
clearly got more. I'm almost tempted to say they added more velocity samples. Like it's switching still, but it's not as obvious. It's not like, okay, between
Mm-hmm.
hard and soft, that's all we get. Like there's might be 4 or 6 samples in there. Most of the
Right.
Nord piano samples, by the way, have about 6 layers to them. But it's good to excellent in almost every sound category. And usually you get some really good sounds and then you get a whole bunch of crap that nobody will ever use. It's like honky tonk piano and zitar and you know sounds banjo, and I was like, oh, why is this in here? General MIDI, I guess it needs these sounds, but like that
Right.
it really is a really solid offering. And I would say, just if you're considering this for a church in particular and your main focus is organ, it's obviously going to do that. But also, if you just need an occasional piano, pad, string, whatever, and by the way, there are pre-made piano and string, piano and pad combos in the individual sections. But what you may not realize is that when you go into sound one or sound two menus, you can choose to turn the layer that you would think is baked into that sound
Right.
down individually.
Right.
I've never seen another company do that. Like, let's just take the Yamaha CP and YC. Like, they have piano and strings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's like the CFX and one of their strings, and you can't do anything to that sound. It's like it's baked in together.
Right.
So this is really, they really thought these things out. So it really, you could be tempted to say, okay, it's not as good as the Nord, it's not as good as the Yamaha, whatever. Okay, but what's being given to you right out of the gate on what is clearly an organ centric instrument is such a strong offering that I'm really tempted to say just don't write it off as it's okay in those
Right.
areas yet, because not only can those things be improved, but if you look at something like the Legend 70s, the technology that they've got into, I have a squeaky chair. That was the chair, by the way. It was it's it's really interesting all the things that they could draw from. And
Right.
Viscount as a company has already clearly done partnerships with like Key B, and they have
Hmm.
within their same kind of general family people like Dexabel, and you've got all these other Italian tech
Right.
that they could probably learn from and draw from. And
Right.
as you said, expect good things. Like the Legend One is already a very competent Nord
Hmm.
Electro competitor.
Right.
It's already a competent YC 61 and 73. Can't say 88 because they don't have an 88 model.
Right.
Competitor. Do they both do some things better than others? Yeah, the Viscount just blows everybody else away in the organ department, bar none. Sorry,
I mean, no,
it's not
yeah.
it's not even close. And and by the way, because canceling the Nord Organ 3 pre-order and buying the Viscount was not about money. I I don't have a lot of money, but I had money set aside to buy about $7,000 worth of keyboards to replace what I had sold. And
Right.
I was just thrilled to death that I could get all that I got in the
For that
73
price.
for the price. Yeah. And I didn't get some kind of special price. Delroy takes care of all of his customers, but man, it was just such a good price already that, the little bit of
Yep.
discount that he gave me was just shocking how good you get for the amount of money. So it's just great that you're able to get what you can for the price. But also remember the company behind it is very clearly interested in the experience of the customer. They
Right.
are invested in, I mean, if you look at, again, I may mispronounce his name, Enzo, I think.
Enzo.
If
Hmm.
you watch his interview, and it's in
Right.
Italian, of course, you'll have to turn on subtitles if you're like me and you can't read Italian or hear speak Italian.
Right.
If you listen to how he's talking about the steps in the process of designing this instrument and all the pieces and parts that went into it, you very
Hmm.
clearly get the passion,
Right.
right? There's so much about Yamaha and Roland that very often feels like an engineer sat down and got given a list of things that had to go in this keyboard and a timeline to do it. And here
Right.
you go. It's like, this is a musician's musical instrument, and it really
Right.
does come across that way. So, just really, as you're considering or not, what to do about the Legend One, if you want to get one, if you don't, really think about the fact that the company behind it is something special, and
Right.
they really not only have they impressed me, but they have the potential, frankly, to upend a lot of the other big players. Just
Hmm.
it's the truth. I mean, Nord is a company that's smaller than almost every other musical instrument manufacturer on the planet. I don't know the
Wow.
size of Viscount. I don't know. Nord has a total of less than 40 employees. Seriously. So what they've been able to do in their, hyper expensive Swedish high
Right.
end boutique instruments, essentially, Viscount has all the tools in place and probably also on the shelf to also do the same kind of thing in terms of market disruption. So,
And also remember too, I'm gonna put a little Easter egg with Viscount. They're a pipe organ company,
right,
and if you know the history of Hammond,
right,
where it came from,
right.
and I'm saying this when you have a company that makes pipe organs and know exactly the physics of how a pipe organ and the detailing.
Mm.
I mean, a Hammond is no that's just like butter on a put on a slice of bread.
Interesting too about the non-tone wheel organs, let's say.
Uh
Um,
oh.
there's a really famous blind female fusion player who also can play
Yes.
every other genre, let's say, that was
Mm-hmm.
walking around with her parents at NAM, and she's just really flowery person if you get to know her. Haha. She was giving all these instruments the once over as well and outplaying all of us, no doubt. But the way that she really analyzes the pipe organs in particular, I mean, she went over to Dexabel, she went to Hammond, she went to Nord. She was really impressed by what was in the Viscounts. And obviously, you have the pipe organ more focused modeled instruments that they've got, but they actually put, and this is the thing that drives me crazy about the Nord Organ 3. The Nord Organ 3 has two modeled pipe organ voices in it, whereas the C2D actually had sampled Baroque and concert pipe organ samples, which really, really are really very good. When they never put that in the stage series, I was really kind of mad about it. They put a modeled version of that. And to use this girl's words, it sounds like a synthesizer with a lot of reverb. So it sounds like a Juno or Jupiter trying to do an organ. Whereas the Viscount, oh man, when I didn't realize is that the sound that those pipe organ focused
Yeah,
instruments that they make, those same sounds and those engines, if you will,
and the
are
drawbar works as a stops
inside.
as well.
They're inside of the Legend One,
Yep.
and I presume also the Soul. And
Yeah, they are in the soul.
if you're a more traditional kind of church, and you're like, well, we don't have a lot of money and we do a whole lot of liturgical kind of services, more, let's say, high church white people kind of stuff. Not Delroy's world, more closer to my kind of thing. This will serve you very well. Honestly, it really will. We have a pipe organ which is on its last leg up in my sanctuary back here, and if I were to plug that thing in on Sunday, the Legend One, and play the symphonic or the Baroque with the pedals, especially, I don't think most of the people here would know the difference. It is really, really well done.
And they sell
So
pipe. We have classical organs as well
yeah,
that we sell here too from Viscount and stuff.
yeah.
So
Anyway, I'm just rambling
my
at this
bad. I'm
point.
sorry.
No, I'm just rambling at this point because I didn't expect those to be good. Because the truth
Right.
is, most even organ boards. I mean, I'm gonna pick on Hammond a little bit. Their pipe organ stuff is pretty good, but Viscount is a lot better. Dexabel, who also makes the Classico series, and they're pretty good, but the Viscount is a lot better. So it's weird. It's almost like they're paying attention when people say, "This is what we want," and here you go. We're going to give you what you want. So
Right.
I've really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to using it in church and band contexts, and even just playing at home. I play it almost every night. Oh, one other thing before you cut me off.
No, he said cut me off.
I'm sure you need to because I need to go home. My wife's like, "Why is he still at church?" This is
Oh,
our church library, by the way. That's why it looks like it's 1,000 years old. The the way that especially the 73, I've not been able to do this with a 61, but the 73, I plugged it into my Nord Stage 4 through MIDI. They were both doing in and out. And I played because the Nord doesn't do high trigger MIDI and neither does the Viscount.
right.
The organ didn't really work for me to play from the Nord keys. I was like, okay, fine. We'll play it from the 73 keys. That works great. That's what it does. That's what it does well, and it does the high trigger so great. But what happens if I were to play my Nord pianos that I like so much from the Viscount's 73 keys? I was really shocked how much better the Nord sounds respond to the 73 keys versus, now I do have the compact stage 4, but versus this compact stage 4 keys. More dynamics, more just being able to be gentle and then get really heavy. It really responds really, really nicely. So if you're wondering, how does this maybe incorporate into maybe my current keyboard setup and what I already use? I really have been shocked that I haven't reached for my 88 key wooden controller very much since getting this 73 because I'm playing the Nord's sounds
Right.
from the Viscount and it's doing a better job than the Nord. So there you go. That's just another little piece of the puzzle that is worth knowing.
All right, guys. So you heard it from. This is an interesting podcast.
It
This is the
was.
first one. And I'm going to have Mr. Ben again. I don't. I know when I'm gonna have him. But Mr. Ben, I would like to thank you so much for really being a part of this podcast and really being transparent and informative. In with your knowledge, with these machines, these equipments, you're not just talking of just heresy. You're basically talking of your
I'm a
experience.
theological heretic, not a musical one.
I'm
Okay.
done.
But what I'll say
Oh,
about Delroy, I really
oh
expected
God.
to get the kind of like, okay, here's these sounds, here's what it sounds like. I'll go buy one now because he's selling this stuff, right? What really
Right.
surprised me is I'm talking to the people out there, not you right now.
Oh,
Uh, what really surprised me about Delroy is that he really digs into these things.
yeah,
Like he
that's right.
cares that the V3
Yes.
Model B version
Err.
of the is spot on. You know, not many people are using the V3 vibrato, but
Mhm.
like the C3 chorus with, all the drawbars out and your
Mhm.
all that and you're doing your Leslie on high. That's the classic gospel sound. Like he digs into this stuff and really, really knows based on, and again, we can't forget we're emulating the real deal, the
Mhm.
V3, the C3, the A100, whatever, the tone
Right.
wheel series and the Leslie speakers. He knows his stuff and he really enjoys.
Yeah.
This is really unusual in a person who sells these things. Like I can't tell you when I worked for Apple how quickly I started to just hate computers and phones and everything. I was like, I'm going to be an Android guy and I'm going to buy, Windows. And that didn't work out either. I'm an Apple guy to this day. But like, it's really rare to find a person who sells
Right.
something who's passionate about the something.
Right.
And not only is he passionate, he's authentic, he's truthful, he's transparent. There's just no, this is part of the reason that I just so quickly placed an order with Viscount and with Delroy. There's just no like salesy gimmicks to it.
Right.
Just he's what you see is what you get, what you hear is what you get. Delroy's a great
Right.
guy. Um,
Appreciate it, man.
when he starts going into his Jamaican accent, I can't understand him sometimes,
Oh
but
Lord
it
Jesus.
it just is it's refreshing to have somebody who's on the inside of a company who also
Yes.
loves what they do and is real, like a real person who
Right.
will say when stuff is
Off.
not so great and will say when it's
Right.
great. Just I really appreciate it. Sebastian Wheat is
Yes.
another good example.
Yes,
He
sir.
also sells these things, but just watching these guys use this stuff at NAM and watching them interact with it in a real way, like it just didn't feel, it doesn't, you don't have that like, see, this car is just awesome and you should buy it right now. It just doesn't have that vibe. And, you know, to be fair, a lot of the other demo guys like, Ed Diaz from Roland, he doesn't do that
Right.
either. They love their jobs, they love what they do.
Hmm.
But there's so much salesy BS that happens in this world,
Right.
and I try to be super transparent and like tell the truth about things. But the fact that a salesperson for a particular brand and product is the same way, not only is it unheard of, it's really, really refreshing. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the way that you
Man,
are, and
appreciate you,
you're getting
sir.
into the nitty gritty of things. I appreciate you having me
Right.
here
Yes, sir.
and talking and doing this
Definitely.
podcast. I look forward to it. Just
Yes, sir.
it's great, man. You just keep it up.
Yes, sir. So you all heard it. This was a very good podcast, and we got more people coming in. Like now I see 8, now I see 13, now I see But all good things must come to an end because yes, I am hungry and I need to eat.
Same
Okay.
here. I'm gonna
And
go to
he,
cookout on the way home.
oh Lord, cookout. But and he's married. I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I have a
he.
daughter too,
Oh, ooh. So she's your
3-year-old. Yep,
father.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. I'm a father.
Yeah, so but anyways, guys, I would like to thank you all so much for really tuning in. I thank you all so much for supporting. As I said, for those who are coming in, Ben Allen has his YouTube channel. What's the name of your YouTube channel, sir?
Well, the little logo says BA Music, but if you're actually just searching for it, a good way to find me is just type in like Ben Allen, Allen, by the way, Viscount or Nord or Roland or something, it'll pop up that way. It's a little blue and white logo.
Right.
And just appreciate you watching any of those that you find helpful.
Yeah.
I'm never going to tell people to like, subscribe, and click the little arrows. And so I just don't
Man,
believe in
you
that,
should.
man.
Oh, you
I
said
just
don't
don't.
believe.
I'm just not like that. That's just not
Yeah.
me. So,
But yeah.
but like and subscribe and click the little bell for Delroy and
Boop.
his whole deal because he puts out really great content that isn't
That's right.
all about organs, by the way. He does a lot of other stuff too.
Uh-oh.
So it just really
Yes, sir.
it'd be worth it. It'll be enriching to you. You'll really benefit from it.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. Well, on behalf of Viscount,